Hi, Laura. How are you doing today?
Really well, thanks, David. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. So I'm really excited today because I guess we're talking. But basically came across your solution introduced by a mutual contact, and you have a pretty amazing solution to be described as being the Zoom and the WhatsApp of legal.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it.
Do you want to
Zoom on
introduce?
steroids is another way that I've heard it described. But I guess, David, we do provide really exciting digital collaboration, primarily through video for lawyers, but we also do a whole heap more than that in terms of customized workflows and entire solutions for courts and dispute resolution and law firms. So it's certainly a good way to sort of understand our digital courtroom and digital mediation suite, and in an instant is to describe it as really a legal form of video. So I understand why people make that analogy. Absolutely.
So a bit like a belt and braces sort of solution. I guess people, when they're looking at things like using document comparison, they might look at Word, but then there's solutions around it to do proper document comparison. So really, you're the belt and braces solution for video for legal.
Exactly. And what we've built is really what I like to describe it as is, you imagine that you used to walk into a boardroom, a mediation center, your client floor, or a courtroom, and we're not concerned at a mediation with what happens to the thousands of cases on your file in your office. We're concerned with what's in your briefcase and what happens in the room that you're in when you're in a legal interaction, whether that be arbitration, whether that be a court hearing or a negotiation with another law firm. How do you replicate that experience that we all used to do on a fancy client floor or in a nice arbitration center? How do you replicate that and be really effective and efficient online? And that's our sweet spot, is making sure that that experience is seamless and intuitive for lawyers and improving their efficiency. And ultimately, our mission is to improve access to justice and sustainability, because obviously the faster throughput of the cases, both in and outside court, the better it is for everyone.
Yeah, so you must have seen a bit of an uptake in terms of online solutions for dispute resolution. I mean, people trying to use, yes, widely available solutions, but that wasn't really dealing with a legal process and the way a lawyer would want to use it.
It's really interesting, David, because I went from, wigs on William Street when I started this business in 2017 to, the pandemic, where all of a sudden people were no longer saying this could never happen online, to it's happening right now. And what we saw, I guess, phase one was really people cobbling together solutions in a really short space of time to try to make it work, both inside and outside of court.
Yep.
Now I think we're in phase two of adoption, which is a Band-Aid solution is no longer acceptable. We actually need things that are going to work for the long term and future-proof the industry. So it's interesting, the feedback I'm getting now that generic solutions are no longer seen as necessarily appropriate. And it's interesting how that shift has occurred from 2020 to 2021, that people really want something now that's actually going to work for them over the longer term.
So, I mean, it's I guess from point of view of the value proposition itself, I mean, when you're going and talking to courts and law firms and things like that, I mean, what are the key things that they're actually looking at this solution? What's it going to do for them? What are the key things there?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can look at this. I mean, one of the things that I like to talk about is it makes judges and lawyers feel at home, so that they're able to do their job effectively and actually not focus on the technology. Try to make the technology disappear. So it's like they were just living their old existence, doing their thing in court, and all the tools and features and functionality try to replicate that. You layer on top of that the fact that we can actually save time, and I think we've determined it's about up to an hour a day of a mediator's time, because the platform knows client lawyer teams, and so there's no fiddling around in organising the ability for privacy and confidentiality. The platform knows who your client lawyer team is, and so your private room and your ability to see the right documents and materials and chat with your team is already set up. So it's sort of efficiencies both before, during and after the case. And then finally, I guess, once our clients start to build with us and customize the solution to their needs, we put the tools in the hands of our clients to actually design entire workflow solutions and analytics that they want to see to be able to improve their organisation and actually transition to a more effective process overall. So not just digitising their old way of doing business, but actually open up new possibilities. And so an example of that would be our work with Sports New Zealand, the New Zealand Ministry for Sport, where we've created an entire new complaints and dispute management system that didn't exist before, which is now operating. And so we're managing to resolve cases that are in some cases really old and haven't been resolved before through interactions not only of technology but also expertise. And so that's where it gets super exciting, is really this concept of overarching system design and starting to help the industry move to a much more effective way of doing business in the digital environment.
I mean, it must mean the throughput of cases is far greater, or mediation throughput of mediations is far greater.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it has its pros and its cons. I mean, we report equal numbers of effectiveness. So I think the stats show that mediation, by way of example, there are the same number of resolutions as there were before in terms of 1-for-1. What we're finding is that people are doing more work, and that can be tiring. But also when you're looking at cases, backlogs in courts and disposition rates that are really overwhelming at the moment, obviously the ability to increase that disposition rate or disposal rate and reduce the backlog is of enormous benefit to the community. So there are pros and cons, but I certainly think that we're going to find the efficiency benefits and the sustainability benefits, but also just that's what the clients want now. I mean, why would a client want to go and sit all day in the back of a dusty courtroom looking at the back of their barrister or their trial attorney when they can suddenly see the theatre, they can see the judge, they can see the interactions, they can really participate in something where before I felt like there was a real gap between the client and the lawyers and the judges. Now there's a sense of equal participation in terms of access, although of course it is important to emphasize our solution really tries to maintain the control of the judge or the neutral party over the proceedings. So it's not equivalent in all respects, but it does provide way more access into what was a little bit mysterious before for clients. And why would they want to do that when they can do it from the comfort of their home or their office?
Oh, exactly.
The same for the lawyers. I mean, we're hearing all over the world people say, I never thought I'd be a convert to doing things online, but wow, I'm at my beach house or I'm at my house putting on the washing. And it's amazing to see the shift in the profession and everyone really to adapting to flexible ways of working, of which this is obviously one very special instance.
I mean, what's really come to light recently is what people are terming the Great Resignation, which you've probably done some reading about. And I see you smiling here, but basically, I think it was quoted that 40% of people are looking at changing jobs or changing options and things like, changing careers. And I think to myself, from a legal profession standpoint, I mean, if you can't provide people with the tools they need to do things in a flexible sort of way and actually work the way they want to work, then they're off.
I think that's right. And it's super interesting. I mean, a top tier law firm partner was saying to me the other day that it's going to be very difficult to get approval to travel now, particularly for dispute resolution overseas or interstate. And there's no need to fly. So it's going to be increasingly difficult to justify, particularly these large arbitrations that used to happen where people would fly all over the world. But also, I think people are just recognizing that the work-life balance that, groups like Victorian Women Lawyers have been pushing for years, and women like Elizabeth Broderick talking about equality coming through men and women both having more flexibility, those things are coming true. And it's really an exciting time to be in the industry, not just legal, but generally to see how all those things that we've wanted for so long for equality are coming to life. And it's not that big of a deal. In fact, law firms are more productive than they've ever been. So it's great. Right.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also, I think we've talked about this before, but I guess the application of your platform, I mean, beyond law firms as well, in terms of actually, HR from a negotiation standpoint, from HR sort of areas, and doing things globally.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really, I guess, the case of we're spoilt for choice in terms of industry verticals where this could apply.
Yep.
And it's amazing how many litigators I've shown who say, hang on a minute, your contract drafting tools would be really super helpful for my colleagues in M&A, when, you know, I like to think of it as the midnight clause, where you've got 3/4 of an agreement done and it's, you know, there's the last 3 warranties you need drafted, and you're dealing with someone offshore, and it's all in one spot on our platform and encrypted. So it's not like you're trying to cobble together, you know, WhatsApp and Google Drive and you know, all of these things. I like to think, you know, in the cinema, when we used to go to the cinema, there was sometimes an ad about what used to be in an iPhone.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like that. So, you know, at the moment, people are using a million different tools to try to do a job, and we do it all in one place. One of my favorite things that I've asked the engineers to build is something to stop, like to enable chat from solicitors to barristers, so that the solicitors can't ping you on WhatsApp in the middle of a hearing. The online equivalent of tugging on the back of the robe, because it drives me nuts when instructing solicitors think that you've received a communication on your mobile when you're trying to communicate with the judge on a little green dot on your screen. So those kind of things, I guess, are, you know, take our solution way more into a specialized offering for lawyers.
I mean, the fact that it's a solution you've produced and designed, and I mean, your background as well, I mean, knowing really what lawyers and barristers actually want in our courtrooms work, it's quite incredible.
Oh, thanks, David. Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting ride for me, from sitting in my chambers on William Street to, I guess, becoming an accidental entrepreneur. I mean, I never wanted this career in particular. I have a lot of reach outs from young whippersnippers who say, I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to work from my laptop on a beach. And how did you do that? And I mean, I usually tell them that there was 20 years of grunt figuring out what I knew about anything, before, you know, you have a skill set which lends itself to having an idea and being able to execute it. So it's interesting that people's perception of what it's like is very different from the reality of 7-day weeks, and, you know, trying to feel your way through that entrepreneurial journey. But it's certainly been one hell of a ride so far, and, you know, a very different skill set, a part of my brain from being a barrister. It's sort of, I like to describe it that being a barrister is sort of, it's almost like that you're you're confining your brain to a set of facts and circumstances and trying to sort of look down and control that information. What I'm doing as an entrepreneur is the complete opposite. You're sort of looking up, and it's, you know, trying to find creative solutions to things that have no answer or have no roadmap. So it's a totally different part of my brain, and sometimes doing the barrister work is a bit of a relief. You know, but I'm pretty much, well, I'm not winding down yet, but I'm not replacing any of the cases that I have that settle or go to trial. So it'd be interesting to see when the final crossover happens.
No, definitely. And I actually read, I mean, gosh, I've seen it was it Sydney Morning Herald and also the Financial Review as well, about, I guess, expansion plans around the globe, so particularly in the US. Yeah,
well, we launched in the States last month with a bang at a trade show, and I've got some really great people on board in the United States. And I said to one of the guys, oh, there's this trade show. It was less than 3 or 4 weeks to go. It's in Ohio. I suppose there's no chance we could turn up to the Court Technology Conference. And he said, no, we're going to do it. So we spun up a booth which looked like a courtroom. It had all of the elements of courtroom, including the flags.
Oh, wow.
And we had customized gavels so that people could have their name written on gavels. And it was really great because we got, I guess, the impression of we provide a real digital courtroom experience that emulates your real life experience. You know, a fabulous sort of entry, I guess, that really kicked us off with a bang. And so officially, I guess, launched in the States, which is great. And every time I talk to someone in America, that the platform really resonates, and the UK as well. So, I mean, I guess there's an international way of doing business, legal business, which is sort of universal among the common law countries. So
Yep.
it seemed a really natural next step to start talking to the United States law firm and court market about what we're doing. And they seem to love it. Every trial attorney I speak with gets super excited. So,
Oh, brilliant. I mean, it's great. I've actually sort of been there myself to a degree with DocsCorp, and we sort of had an interesting time, like getting into the US market. It's a very exciting time. So, I mean, yeah, well done. Hats off. It's a big deal. And it sounds like the reaction you've got is actually quite a great one. I know I've talked to a number of consultants in the marketplace myself, and about your solution, and other folks in legal technology, and they're really excited as well about what you're doing.
I mean, the reactions that we get are really pleasing. And sometimes I get even quite amazed. You know, I would be talking to someone in Pittsburgh or Boston or, you know, Los Angeles, and sometimes I'm Googling, I mean, obviously I've been to Los Angeles, but I haven't been to Pittsburgh, and I'll be Googling trying to figure out, you know, where is this place, because my my geography of the United States is improving, but it's not perfect. And, you know, the size of the market.
Oh.
I was talking to one CIO of a law firm, and she said, oh, it's not a big firm, but, you know, we have 14 offices and, you know, turnover of $200 million US, and, you know, 1,000 lawyers. It's just, not a big firm, but by our standards, certainly
incredible.
A world of opportunity. And yeah, and I mean, we'd already moved into New Zealand, and quite successfully, by merging with the former Solicitor General of New Zealand, Mike Heron QC, and sort of already had international operations, which we love. And, you know, it seemed a natural next step to kind of, albeit early in our journey, to just take that leap. And we've just appointed a director in London as well, Greg Wilderson, who is a font of knowledge on all things legal tech related. And I think will be a massive asset to us going forward in the UK market too.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I definitely, there's interest in folks I'm talking to in the UK market about what you're doing. I think it's one of the key partners in the UK. We're actually looking at something going, this is interesting. So no, exciting times ahead. So I mean, what are your plans in the future? So what are your plans to the company in the future? Where are you going besides the international expansion? I mean, around product side, and where are you going with it all?
Well, it's really interesting because, I mean, we obviously started as dispute resolution oriented, as a tech-enabled services company, really. And my original idea was to try to resolve disputes for consumers more effectively, using very senior members of the profession, and being able to make that available to people without any mystery using technology. And that was the business that we launched in 2019, and rapidly sort of changed in the pandemic to a focus on technology adoption more broadly and a subscription-based platform, and have really spent the past 18 months, I guess, bedding down our product to the point where it's, I guess, perceived as one of the leading, if not the leading, online dispute resolution platforms, and a pioneer of that. And so I guess the next little while, the next couple of years, will be really bedding that down and getting courts and law firms to see it as the standard offering, the go-to or default offering for a premium experience. And then ultimately what I'd like to do is actually revert back to where we started, which is start to provide pathways for consumers, whether it's in family law or you know, employment or health, or any of those things where they really struggle and grapple with a really difficult system, to try to approaches, not to sort of do robo law or anything like that, but just really fast and efficient ways to deal with the cases that most lawyers don't want or don't have time for, and are not financially rewarding, but actually need resolution. And then ultimately, I guess, we should have some pretty interesting stories to tell once we've opened this up to the global markets, and we have a sort of, I kind of imagine it, it's almost like a concentric circles, that, you know, the lawyers at the center and the courts as well, and then consumers, and in there is also corporates. We're talking to a lot of companies about how they resolve their disputes and complaints holistically. And so that's obviously a really interesting area, particularly given all of the, you know, the things that have come out in the media recently about difficulties, you know, the athletes are having, and people in Canberra having, and that then, you know, the current ways that we've been resolving complaints of bullying, harassment and sexual assault to date have just not worked, and people have been quiet. And so independent ways of resolving a complaint like that privately without going to court, but also without having to risk your career, I think will really come to the fore. And that's something we're starting to specialise in and hope to develop further.
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well, I really enjoyed catching up with you today, Laura. I mean, it sounds like you guys are on a fantastic journey. I know that it sounds like with the States, the US, that's a massive opportunity for you. But really look forward to keep on chatting in the future about updates where you're up to.
Thank you so much, David. Really good to talk to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Laura.